Hello, welcome back to my channel. This is Dom and another one of my occasional series on castles of the Welsh Marcher region. So this was inspired by this book that I found. This is Castles on the Marches by John Kinross, and it's a very simple book that just lists out about 120 of the castles still in existence, and those that there's basically just a bit of a wall left, that cover the historic Welsh and English Marcher region, the borderlands basically between Wales and England. And we, my wife and I, spend a lot of time up in Shropshire, which is right in the middle of that area, and we like going to visit historical sites. I love my castles, and she puts up with them. So it's a good mixture, and we've been working our way through this book. And this is what this series is about, showing you what I find, a little bit of history. So it's more on the history side rather than the gaming side. So if you're interested, check out the other ones in this series. And not every one of them is in this book. There's a few castles we found that aren't actually in this book. I'm not sure why, because most of them date from the Norman period. That's when the Marcher period really started. It was an attempt by William I, William the Bastard, William of Normandy, to control the unruly Welsh, and he set some of his most important and warlike magnates up in the border regions and basically let them be sort of mini kings in their own rights and built their own castles. And that's where the Marcher region comes from, and that's where these castles basically have their foundations in. Anyway, enough of my chatter. If you're interested, there's another one coming along right now. So next on my tours of castles around the Marcher region is another one that actually isn't in the book that I've been following, but that's never stopped me, and it's not going to stop me now. So this is the castle of Abergavenny, which sits right in the heart of the market town of Abergavenny, which is famous for the food fair, which happens every year. Beautiful little town in Monmouthshire in Wales. And the castle, as I say, is right in the centre, just by a big car park, so it's actually very handy to go to. It's also completely free to enter, and it's the feature of and features in a number of the sort of festivals that happen within the town. The castle dates back to 1087 and was established by a Norman lord, as most of them were. His name, bear with me, is Hamil de Balloon. It's infamous as the site of a massacre of Welsh noblemen in 1175, and was attacked during the Glendur Rising in the early 15th century. It's now a Grade 1 listed building and has been since 1952. So as I say, the castle was built by Norman Lord de Balloon. He had it built around about 1087, protected by a ditch and palisade, and it was a classic moat and bailey castle that you see of the Norman period. But around 1100, a stone keep was built to replace the wooden structure, and a wooden hall was built on its western side. In 1160s, Henry Fitzmiles, the son of Miles de Gloucestershire, or Gloucester, the first Earl of Herefordshire and Lord of Abergavenny, was reportedly killed there by a Welsh lord. But without heir, the estate and his lordship, including parts of Gwent and Breconshire, as well as this castle, passed on to his daughter's husband, William de Brosse. De Brosse rebuilt parts of the castle and constructed a curtain wall, part of which still remains today. The castle was then the scene of an infamous massacre. During the Christmas of 1175, de Brosse called basically the lord who'd killed his father, or his uncle, whatever, and his son to the castle, reportedly as a part of as an act of reconciliation. De Brosse then had them all killed in the Great Hall in retribution for the death of Henry Fitzmiles.
His actions, including taking the men's land, resulting in sanctions. And William was retired, inverted commas, from public life. And the castle passed on to his son, also William. In 1182, the Lord of Carnarvon ordered the destruction of Dinglestow Castle and had Abergavenny Castle set afire in retribution for the murders. The attacks were made by the relatives of those murdered, but de Brasse was not in the castle when it was burnt, but most of his men were taken hostage. The castle was almost entirely rebuilt of local old red sandstone, starting about 1190 to make it easier to defend, and 5 towers and a curtain were built along the curtain walls, and a keep was built. The English and Welsh fought for control of the Welsh marches, and during this time the possession of Abergavenny switched between Welsh and English repeatedly. And in 1112 the castle was visited by King John of England. In the 13th and 14th century, the castle was expanded by the Hastings family, including the addition of a western towers, which provided residential chambers. 2 towers, one circular and one polygon, were probably built in 1295 and 1314 by John Hastings, 1st Baron Hastings. And between the late 13th century and the early 14th century, a new wall was built. In 1404, during the rebellion of Owen Glendur, the town of Abergavenny was sacked and burned, and the castle was besieged by Welsh forces. William Beauchamp and his men had to be rescued by Richard of York, and the men assembled by the Sheriff of Herefordshire at Henry the Fourth's request. In 1405, the garrison of the castle consisted of 80 mounted soldiers, armed servants, and 400 archers. The fortified or Barbican gatehouse, described by a historian, John Newman, was unimpressive. May have been resulted from around that time, 1405. No lord took up residence after the 15th century, and during the English Civil War, as the Roundheads neared the castle, Charles I ordered a slighting of the castle to prevent its useful occupation. Most of the castle buildings, including the stone keep, were destroyed, and the site, stone from the site was later used in other buildings. By the late 18th century, the ruins were starting to attract attention because of the picturesque views, and walks were laid out within the castle walls themselves. In 1819, Henry Neville, 2nd Earl of Abergavenny, had a hunting lodge constructed on top of the moat. A formal garden was also created in the late 19th century by William Neville, 5th Earl of Abergavenny, overlooking the Usk Valley with picturesque walks and gardens and a gazebo. In the 20th and 21st century, the castle and the hunting lodge, which is now Abergavenny Museum, a rather nice little museum, actually covers features of Welsh history, free to go in, and not very big, but quite fun to go in. And the entire site was graded as Grade 1 or Grade 2 listed building in July 1952. And the outer walls have also since been listed in 2002. Well worth a visit. It doesn't take long to get around. It's not a big castle, and it's largely a ruin. But the little museum in the centre is definitely worth a visit. So there you go. That's Abergavenny Castle.